Faithful, Niner Empire. What's good? Hey, what a way, fellas, to end the week one of the NFL season. What a way for the 49ers to go out there on Monday Night Football and beat the Jets up. That was a great game to watch from a 49er fan perspective. How are you guys doing? Kelts will be in as soon as he can get here. But how are you doing first? Eric, Bay Area Baller 18. Let him know. How you doing, man?
Hey, feeling great. Always feels good to start off the Niners season with a dub, just a dominant performance. So I'm feeling good. I'm pumped up, ready to talk some ball and kind of recap this Monday Night Football matchup.
First of all, I gotta give my apologies to Jake Moody. We had some Mitch slander last week, but Jake Moody, I apologize because I've been hard on you last year. I was hard on you, and I still ain't a full-time believer and a firm believer. But 6 for 6, you can't complain. He had a couple of 50-yarders. He had that one that doinked in, but Jake Moody, for now, you have me on your side a little bit. Can't complain. Niners got a dub over Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, who were supposed to come out and be, some people's Super Bowl picks. Obviously, it's week one, but I'll take it. The Niners start off the season 1-0 without Christian McCaffrey, without Ricky Pearsall. I'll take it.
Hey, man, without Jake Moody, the 49ers do not win this game. Like you said, 6 for 6. He counted for 20 points. He was one of the top 4 players you could argue in this game. He showed up and showed out. And as you mentioned, he had a few 50-yard kicks. So, hey, praise to Jake Moody. You mentioned earlier, the dream about Ricky Pearsall not playing, CMC not playing. I don't know when you guys got the notification, but I thought, I don't know about you guys, I thought CMC was going to play. Did you guys think CMC was going to play? Or at least to me, all indications were he would at least play. I think he was listed as questionable for the game, I think. Were you guys surprised CMC didn't play?
I was surprised. I was watching, one of Krug's little interviews he did in the locker room talking to CMC, and they asked him if he was going to play. And McCaffrey, I don't want to misquote him, but he alluded to that he was going to play. It was not something. And then what I found interesting was during the post game, ESPN's sideline reporter asked JP Mason, they said, "When did you find out you would be the starter?" And JP said Friday. So I was like, whoa, okay. So they knew all weekend. They couldn't tell me, so I could have put Mason in my lineup a couple days ago. A lot. And anyway, so, but, JP Mason, we knew this kid's talented. We had been pounding the table like, hey, let's get JP Mason some more touches. We've been saying it for a couple years, but we know McCaffrey, he's a stud, and he doesn't like to come off the field. So Mason hadn't really gotten that opportunity until today. He was absolutely sensational. Finished up with 28 carries for 147 yards, over 5 yards a clip. His day could have been even bigger, fellas. JP got him down to the goal line, right? Got him down to the 3, and then what does Kyle do? Runs a jet sweep to Debo. Debo punches it in. Okay. That's all right. Then there was another red zone opportunity later on in the game. Shanahan elected to kick it. So it was Mason was super close to even having an even more redonkulous game. But JP Mason, before the game, I don't know if you guys saw my tweet, but I said, they will find out who JP Mason is today. And when I say we're going to find out, it's the casual NFL fan, maybe Jets fans. It's we know who JP Mason is, but I feel like this was his coming out party to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And he had this incredible game going up against the likes of Solomon Thomas and Javon Kinlaw and Quinnen Williams. I was shocked that they didn't have a bigger impact on the game, especially when the 49ers were running in between the tackles. But the dream has been pounding the table as well for JP Mason, man. Obviously, you could argue he's MVP of the game. We'll definitely get into that. But what were your thoughts on JP?
I mean, I didn't know. I got the notification when Schefter and those guys were tweeting it out, and I was like, I gotta put him in my fantasy lineup, and I got that dub against Jay, this week. But I gotta say that first and foremost. So like, it's cool to get the dub on the field, but it's also cool to get the dub off the field with your fantasy team. So JP Mason, appreciate you. But no, he definitely, like Baller said, he definitely could have had more opportunities with obviously the touchdown that they gave to Debo. I thought they would let JP get his first touchdown over there, in that drive during that drive. But JP Mason also, like Baller said, he could have had a much bigger game because there's a lot of times where he would have big runs and then holding call on Colton McKivitz or illegal block in the back by Debo, and you're like, especially that Debo one, like I'm like, he could take that for a touchdown. Like he's been aggressively running all game, like. Let him like truck a dude or like push a dude a little bit more and he'll get that touchdown. But Debo obviously was it Sauce Gardner? I think it was Sauce Gardner. And then that call, that touchdown run gets called all the way back. But JP Mason had hell of a game. And one thing that stood out to me is that Troy Aikman and Joe Buck at the end of the game, they were like, the Niners could have a real 1-2 punch this year when Christian McCaffrey comes back. But Niners fans have been saying it for the last couple of years, for the last 2 years since he's been on the team, that like you have Christian McCaffrey who's great, but you don't need to give him 28 carries a game. And especially like on a third and short, the way that JP Mason runs and his style of running of just his physicality, his aggressiveness, his will, just the heart that he has to fight for those extra yards. Like JP Mason, even when Christian McCaffrey comes back, even if that Achilles thing heals up and Christian McCaffrey's at 80, 85, 90%, on a 3rd and 2, I said it like before the season started, on a 3rd and 2, on a 3rd and 3, get JP Mason in the game. You don't need Christian McCaffrey to have 28, 30 carries. And tonight proved it. Like JP Mason is more than capable of starting in this offense, of running, of being effective, of being efficient. In the first half, he had 6.7 yards per carry. Like that's really good numbers. So like give JP Mason more opportunities, Kyle. Like I don't know what more JP Mason has to do after this game. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if CMC doesn't play next week. And on top of that, I wouldn't be surprised if CMC gets put on IR for the first 4 games of the season. So, like, I'm not saying that's happening and that's gonna happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, he already missed in week 1. If the Niners want to be more precautious, JP Mason's more than good enough to come in and fill in. You saw that tonight against a good Jets defense. So happy for JP Mason. I was pounding the table for him for the last couple of years. I know all of us were. But even when Christian McCaffrey does come back, I hope they give JP Mason some opportunities.
Now, he had a hell of a game, and the 49ers dominated up front, obviously opening holes for, Debo Samuel and also JP Mason. That was something that we had talked about a few hours before the game. I was like, well, will Debo get an increased running back role? And he did. It was good to see. But I like Debo in this role where he's running the ball, he's catching the ball out the backfield. But it was definitely good to see. Bear Baller, you mentioned Jordan Mason said something at the end of the game, and it was about when he knew he would start. I don't know if Amin heard that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, at the end of the game, ESPN sideline reporter was talking with Mason, and she asked him, when did you find out you were going to be the starter? And JP was like, probably like Friday. And then I'm like, whoa, if I would have known that, I would have plugged him into a lineup or two that, I ended up thinking CMC was going to play. Yeah. So Mason was on the bench, but I thought that was interesting. And it also tells you, these coaches, man, it's a big secret. It's secretive. They don't want other teams to know who's active, who's going to be inactive. So that was just one of those scenarios.
Yeah. Yep. That's Shanahan playing to the echo of the whistle. I think that's what Kruger said. He's playing to the echo of the whistle, like he wants his players to. But hey, kudos to Shanahan. You always got to keep the other team on their toes. I just want to say real quick shout out. If you're in the chat right now, what's good to you? I think we have Grandizer in the building. We have John. What's good? Appreciate you guys tuning in to the stream tonight. There's another player that was inactive that I was surprised by, and that was Talanoa Hufanga. Even on the broadcast, when they were showing the starting lineup for the 49ers defense, they had Hufanga there, and I was like, he's not out there. So that was a surprise to me, but I thought George Odom played well. I mean, I want to say the longest passing play of the game was to juice down the sideline. Looked like he ran a out and up. He was wide open, and I think that was the longest play of the game. So I say that to say that the Rodgers and the Jets, they weren't able to really execute down the field as far as in the vertical game. So kudos to George Odom playing that free safety role, and he didn't allow anything past him. Now there was one play. I think there was one play to Lazard. I think it was in the third quarter. So other than that, I mean, Odom played pretty well, and I think that was his first start. I would say he's known as a special teams guy, and so for him to play the whole game at that free safety spot, I think that was good to see. I'm sure he knew a few days in advance that he was going to start. But just real quick, were you guys surprised Huff didn't play? I was certainly surprised. No,
I wasn't. I was surprised that during the broadcast when they were showing the defensive players, like you mentioned, Jay, that Hufanga was up there. I was like, Hufanga? What? I thought he was going to miss, which he did. So ESPN's graphic was just a little off there. But no, the ACL, I don't want to rush him back from that at this point. Like, let's give him a couple more weeks to heal up and kind of reassess.
You got to wonder why Hufanga wasn't just put on PUP. I mean, he barely practiced at the end of August. Why not just put him on PUP? He missed the first 4 games. I know there's a limited number of guys you can put on PUP to return, but why, if you want to come up with this approach where you're not aggressive with his return, just no pressure. You missed the first 4 games. We open up your practice window in week 5, and then we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm just curious why they didn't do that with Huff or with CMC. I agree with Amin. I think we need CMC in the back half of the season. We need him for the long playoff run. Let him miss the first 4 weeks. JP Mason is playing great. We play Minnesota next week. I'm all for that cautious approach. That like that Steve Kerr approach. Give guys time to heal and don't rush them back.
I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from, but let me tell you what Kyle or what the Niners are thinking. They're thinking if these guys have a chance to come back before the 4th game, then they want to take that opportunity to have their, stud players on the field.
Absolutely.
So I think they're banking on like, okay, these guys are going to miss week 1, maybe miss week 2, but they expect them to not miss 4 games. So by that 3rd or 4th game, I think we're going to see, either McCaffrey could be there next week, but either way, I think the Niners don't expect these guys to miss 4 games.
Schefter said before the game that I don't think Christian McCaffrey has a high probability of playing next week either. But even if they don't decide to put Christian McCaffrey on IR, because the first 4 weeks, if you look at the first 4 weeks, you have obviously the Jets, which you played. You have Minnesota next week. You have the Rams, and then you have the Patriots, which are the Patriots is a winnable game. The Rams without Puka and the injuries that they have on their offensive line, like as long as Purdy and that offense, comes on, takes care of business, you can win that with JP Mason, and not to mention the Vikings, which unless the Niners fall asleep, like that's also another game where you should be able to win. But that second half of the schedule, not the second half, but like after week 6 through like 8, you have the Chiefs, you have the Cowboys, like those are the games where you would want Christian McCaffrey. So even if you don't have Christian McCaffrey on IR, if they do decide to bring him back week 3 or week 4, like I would want him on a limited snap count, like 10, 15, not like 10, 15 carries, but like I don't need him, having 20 carries, 25 carries. Give Jordan Mason the opportunities, especially because I don't want Christian McCaffrey out the whole entire year with like a torn Achilles. Not saying that Jordan Mason can't come in and, suffice to a certain extent, but having Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason together would be a killer combination, not to mention Elijah Mitchell's also out for the year. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then you add in Debo who could run a little bit. And I don't know about you guys, but Sauce Gardner was not the same after he tried to tackle Debo. It looked like he had some type of shoulder injury or a stinger but he just wasn't the same. And that's the type of mentality. Yeah.
Jay, he felt, I don't know why, but like watching Sauce on some plays, he just felt like a lazy tackler. Like, I don't know if it was the Debo play, But like, there's certain plays where I just didn't feel like I saw the hustle from Sauce. It was just like, all right, like if I get the dude, cool. But like it wasn't like I don't know. I don't know if it was
after he got hit by Debo, he wasn't the same.
It might have been the shoulder thing. It might have been the shoulder thing. But even then, like I know he had that one pass breakup on Ayuk, and like I know they were doing like some like little celebration in the beginning.
That was early in the game, though. That was
early in the game. But like I don't know. I just didn't see the hustle from Sauce.
Not all these teams around the league. I mean, not all these teams. Their corners are as aggressive as the Niners in run defense. You know, it's like I get what you're saying, and I see it across the league with a lot of these teams. Like some of these corners they're disinterested, like they don't want to get down and dirty. But it's like these Niners, if you're going to be on the field, if you're going to be getting snaps on this defense, you got to be sticking your nose in there. Whether you're a corner, linebacker, doesn't matter. All these guys, Demo, Charvarius Ward, these guys all stick their nose in there, but that's not how every team does it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I would be surprised if the Jets were, and that's part of the reason why Kyle Shanahan, doesn't want to say, oh, CMC's out for the game a few days ago, right? Because he doesn't want the Jets defenders to have to prepare for, oh, Debo may be running the ball. I'm sure they weren't expecting it. I sure as hell wasn't expecting it, not until CMC was ruled out. Because ever since we've got CMC, Debo has not run the ball as much. But it was definitely good to see, and it seems like the Jets defenders weren't expecting it. So
no, that was a smart move by Kyle. That was definitely a smart move by Kyle. And like, I didn't know that CMC wasn't gonna play, but just like knowing Kyle Shanahan, I still remember when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt that week. It was Jimmy, and Trey Lance was like the only quarterback, and there was some other random backup. And then Kyle's like, "Are you gonna announce Trey Lance as a starter for this week?" And he didn't announce it until like Saturday, the day before the game, right? Like that's just Kyle Shanahan and what he does. But I thought it was smart by Kyle to not announce, because I didn't know until the game started, and then I hit up like some of my family members who have Christian McCaffrey in their fantasy leagues, and I'm like, CMC ain't playing this week, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, CMC ain't playing. Like, make your lineup adjustments. But it was a surprise.
No, absolutely. I'm sure that news came out maybe like 3:30, 4 o'clock, so it was super late. But we got reinforcements. I got to say, what's good to Sean Tuber. Thanks for tuning in to the stream tonight. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Absolutely. Before we talk more about the game, we got to talk about number 21, Frank Gore, getting inducted into the 49ers Hall of Fame over the weekend. I think he had a speech at halftime during the game tonight, and he also had his presentation last night. So I just wanted to real quick talk about Frank Gore. Frank Gore, that was probably the second jersey I've ever gotten, and it's this one I'm wearing right now. I think the first one I got was Terrell Owens, but Frank Gore was a part of a lot of bad 49er teams. Especially what he got drafted. I think it was 05, 06, had Alex Smith under center. So Frank Gore was a part of a lot of bad teams, but Frank Gore was the reason you wanted to watch Niner games, was he was playing at his prime. And I just want to say salute to Frank Gore. Definitely well deserving of being inducted into the Niners Hall of Fame. He should be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as well, especially with 16,000 career rushing yards. I believe he's third all time in the NFL in rush yards, first all time with the 49ers in career rushing yards. So I just want to say real quick kudos to Frank Gore. Definitely all the work that he's put. He's got 104 career total touchdowns, 86 rushing touchdowns. And he was drafted in 05, the year I graduated high school. I'm aging myself, but Frank Gore definitely was a great guy to watch. He had his best years with Harbaugh. Too bad he couldn't just play his entire career with the Niners, but hell, I mean, Jerry Rice didn't. So Joe Montana didn't. So when you guys think of Frank Gore, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Real quick. I mean, did you see Frank Gore play?
Yep.
Okay. What were your thoughts, man?
See, like when
you were go ahead.
So when I first started watching Niner football, it was like 2015. Like I used to watch Niners games when Colin Kaepernick was the quarterback, like 2013, 2014, even 2012. But it wasn't like I would watch every Niners game. But in 2015, I would tap into every Niners game, and that was when he had Carlos Hyde. But I also remember when I used to watch Niners games when when Frank Gore was on this team. I didn't understand football well enough. So I was always like, why are they running in the middle? Like, why are they running in between the tackles? Like, this makes no sense. This is really stupid. Like, what's the point of this? Because every time I would watch it, every time I'd come and like link to the TV, I'm like, he's just getting stuffed. Like, what's the point of this? Like, who's this running back? I thought Frank Gore was garbage. Like, no disrespect, but like when I was a young, naive kid who had no football knowledge, I thought Frank Gore and the 49ers were garbage. Because every time I see him run up the middle, I'm like, he's getting stuffed. Nothing's happening. Run
It's
to the
4
outside.
yards. It ain't pretty. I know where you're coming from.
I'm like, run to the outside. Like, run to the outside. Get some yards. Try to do something. But Frank Gore is a legend, man. First ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion, should be. It's like third all time in rushing yards. Like, obviously, he didn't finish his career with the 49ers, but the longevity of his career, even when after he left the 49ers, he had 1 year with the Bills where he had 1,000 yards. Like, Frank Gore, the consistency, no matter what age, like, Frank Gore is not only, I'm glad he's in the Niners Hall of Fame, but he definitely should be a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. And I think he will be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, I mean, 49ers legend and overall NFL legend. But yeah, I'm happy for Frank Gore. I'm glad he got into 49ers Hall of Fame. But like, there's players like Frank Gore where you wish the team was a little bit better around him, so that, like, you know, the prime of his career was used on a team that actually had a chance at winning a championship. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But I mean, now we have Christian McCaffrey in this team, and those guys, you know, CMC has an opportunity to win a Super Bowl, and his talents aren't going to waste. But yeah, but Frank Gore, first ballot Hall of Famer, much respect to him.
Well said.
Yeah, Frank Gore, the guy's a legend. Like, there's a few Niners that it stings that we couldn't get him a Super Bowl victory. Like Frank Gore, you know, I know we got there, we lost to the Ravens, but Joe Staley, Patrick Willis, it's like those guys, they're going to be lifetime Niners. We're going to be seeing their faces for decades to come because they were just that special of players. And Frank, the dude was a great person. Like, one of my closest friends worked security for the Niners back in the day. Like, he was traveling with the team, like flying and whatnot. And he told me a story where Frank wanted to go downtown to go shopping, downtown San Francisco, but he didn't want to drive. So my buddy ended up driving him because he was working for the team, drove him out to the city, took him to some spots. You know, Frank he said he got some like diamond encrusted shoes, my buddy said. But anyway, after Frank's shopping spree was done, he's like, okay, we're gonna go get some steaks, right? So my buddy, and Frank had another one of his friends with him, but my buddy dropped him off at the steakhouse. And, you know, my buddy thought he was gonna stay outside, you know, while Frank and his buddy ate. And Frank's like, no, you're coming in. We're all getting the steaks. And so I love that story. So Frank, great player, great dude. You know, loved watching him play. Just his decisiveness, his vision. Like, I know I don't want to compare Jordan Mason to him, but just like the decisiveness and the vision is something that I see kind of you can make a comparison, because these guys, they see the hole, they hit the hole. You know, they're getting 3, 4, 5 yards. It feels like, at least, you know, more often than not. Frank, guy's a legend.
And we all want. I mean, like, I remember you hit up in the DMs, but like, did you guys watch the New York Giants Hard Knocks? And I know he was out there for his son, Frank Gore Jr., but I've seen every single year, I feel like at the Combine or at Pro Days, Frank Gore's there. And then you see, even on Hard Knocks this year, like, the GM of the New York Giants came to Frank Gore. It's like, what you think of these running backs? Like, what's your opinion? So, like, a lot of GMs and a lot of players respect his opinions on running backs and on players around the league. So, like, he's respected, you know, league wide.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think he has a role with the 49ers. I don't know if it's like official, but he does help the team scout. And I use that term loosely, you know, the running backs that are in the draft. At least that's what he said in the past. So, Grandizer had an interesting comment. Frank Gore was good, but he was not Garrison Hurst. Garrison Hurst was really good. Obviously, Roger Craig. I didn't see Roger Craig. You know, I'm a little bit younger than that, but obviously I know how great he is. But as far as statistically, Frank Gore is obviously the best running back in Niners history statistically. But I'm sure guys who've seen Roger Craig would say he was better. But Frank Gore, he wasn't flashy. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the biggest. But he has that heart, and that's something that you can't really tell when you draft someone, especially after
he fell forward every time.
Yeah, and he's coming out of college with 2 torn ACLs, and so he was definitely one of the great 49ers.
No, Jay, like I don't know if it's because I don't. Did you guys see Ronnie Lott? I know it's a little bit off topic, but did any of y'all watch like Ronnie Lott growing up, or is that a little bit?
That's a little bit before my time. Ronnie Lott.
I was there like in the locker room when Ronnie Lott cut his pinky off.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like that's what I was about to say. That's what I was about to say. Like we out here seeing like players like are complaining about their contracts and things like that. And like I remember when I was a kid, like my uncle told me, like, dude, Ronnie Lott cut off his finger to play in the game. Like that's another level of like you see. Now I'm not trying to hate on the NBA guys, but like NBA guys just be getting rest days like 3 times a week, 2 times a week.
It's a different era now.
Yeah, and you see Ronnie Lott freaking cutting off his finger to play in a football game. Like, and they weren't getting paid $100 million, $200 million, $80 million, even at the safety position to play safety. Like they were getting paid way less than that, but still the dedication towards your teams like that generation was different.
No doubt. It's definitely different. Things are a whole lot different now. If you're upset with your team, you just unfollow them on IG. That's the era that we live in now, where 10 years ago, IG wasn't even here. So G12 is arguing about Frank Gore. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? I know, of course, a lot of Niner fans are going to say he should. I think he should. Based on his stats. If you look at where he's ranked 3rd all time in career rushing yards, how can he not be in the Hall of Fame? One could say, well, he was never the best running back in his era. That's fair. But he did play against Adrian Peterson. You look at LT, Jerome Bettis, Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James. Obviously, those guys, another level, right? But he is super consistent. And there's no doubt about that looking at his numbers. And he'll always be a legend in 49ers mind. So
he might not have been number 1 at the running back position, but like when you're top 5, like for a decade, okay, come on.
That you definitely need to get love for that.
The simplest argument I could make is if you just put up that stat sheet, like on a blank piece of paper, you know how people do it like per player A and player B.
Yep.
Put up that stat sheet and you put out like a poll on Twitter, is that a Hall of Fame career? You're going to get 90 or 80% of people saying that's a Hall of Fame career, right? And then there's 20 people that might be smart, 20% of people that might be smart enough and be like, that's Frank Gore. He doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but just that pure stat sheet alone. 3rd all time in rushing yards, 3rd all time, right? Like, I mean, that's really impressive. And even like I said, after he left the Niners, when he wasn't prime Frank Gore to have a 1,000-yard season with the Bills, not a good Bills team, like a whatever Bills team, to put up 1,000 rushing yards with the whatever Bills team, like, no, Frank Gore definitely deserves to be in Hall of Fame. Just look at the numbers.
And I think he has a unique stat where he had 12 consecutive seasons of over 1,200 scrimmage yards. So I think he was the first player to ever do that. So that's something that he could, add to his ledger. But hopefully he gets inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. But
how many consecutive seasons did you say he had of 1,200 yards or something like that? 12. Okay, so like just purely based off that, because I didn't watch like prime Frank Gore, but if you're basing it off that, does Mike Evans not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Like Mike Evans has consistent 1,000-yard seasons year after year after year, but he's not considered even a top 10 receiver in the league half the time, right? In people's lists, or even a top 5 guy. But before he had Brady, before he had Baker Mayfield, he was playing with Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick as starting quarterbacks.
Still putting up numbers too.
And he's playing a 1,000-yard season after year after year after year. But does Mike Evans not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame just because he wasn't the best running wide receiver or the top 5 wide receiver? Nah, like he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And Mike Evans isn't flashy. He doesn't talk like I don't think I've ever heard him speak. But
Mike Evans' greatest accomplishment might be getting Johnny Manziel drafted in the 1st round. That might be his
from Texas Tech. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they were pretty good in college, right? At Texas Tech.
Texas A&M.
Okay.
But yeah,
My
yeah,
bad.
no, they were prolific. They won a lot of games.
They beat
But it's like
Alabama.
Mike
Johnny Manziel as a
Mike
freshman
made
beat Alabama.
Mike made Johnny look even better. Like Johnny would just throw up like jump balls,
Yeah.
you know,
Say, go
50
get it.
yards down the field, and then Mike would go up and get it. And I'm like, you know, younger me's like, Johnny football's so good, but really it should have been like,
Hey,
this 6'5" receiver is a badass.
hey, real quick, Amin and Kelts, you were talking about Mike Evans. Every season he's had over 1,000 receiving yards. I mean, and he's been in the league since 2014. So that's pretty incredible.
But he's
Kelts,
not. But he's not flashy. Like
he's not
yeah,
flashy though.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Kelts, how are you doing on this wonderful Monday night, man?
It's a beautiful night. Hey, Mr. Consistent with Mike Evans, right?
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on Frank Gore, man, getting inducted to the 49ers Hall of Fame?
Frank the Tank. Hey, man. Shoot, man. He blew out. What did he blew out his knee twice, I think, before even starting his NFL career. So I mean, hey, and for him to put together that kind of longevity, I mean, he knew how to get it's a trip because Frank Gore, he was like a little bowling ball, but he knew how to get skinnier better than anybody. He would find the crease and somehow come out of it. And you know, bust a 40, 50, you know, people forget, you know, he might not have been doing flips into the end zone, but he would bust a 40, 50, 60 yarder once every 2 games. And, you know, I'd wait for it, but the way he would get low and he's a dog, just like he said. So, yeah.
Absolutely. One of the best to ever do it, to wear that red and gold. That's for sure. Hey, man, the Niners beat the Jets 32-19 without CMC, without Talanoa Hufanga. We were all surprised that CMC didn't suit up tonight. I was surprised that Huff didn't play. But out of all that, let's talk about the positives in the game. Let's start off with you, Kelts. Man, who's someone that stood out to you on this Monday night?
Oh man, hey, there's an obvious person, right? But I'm gonna give the salute. Of course, it goes to JP Mason, right? I mean, you know, it feels like it was 5 years ago when I was like, he's got to be good. That's my son's name. I got to get that jersey. Yada yada yada. And hey, we got to see it tonight. Props to the kid. Real talk. But I want to give the props to the offensive line. But not just the offensive line, but Kyle Shanahan for not getting too tricky, keeping it vanilla. Hey, he was imposing the will. Every play I was watching the offensive line. Are they doing pulls? Are they getting tricky? It was just downhill, vanilla, you know. So that was my biggest thing. But Kyle also frustrated me on 3rd and 2. And, you know, a lot of 3rd and 2s, a lot of 3rd and 3s. It's like, okay, hey, we're running it down their throat. Hey, let's show that same heart on 3rd and 2, and then they go into the shotgun. But for the most part, imposing the will with the offensive line, hey, I love to see it. And just, you know, straight up vanilla. It wasn't all the trickery. It wasn't all the pulls and all the gimmicks. It was downhill.
What say you, Bay Area baller?
A lot of positives. And before I name my guy, I wanted to say, did you guys see a new formation out there on offense?
Did you guys pistol see? / I don't know what to call it.
Well, they do a motion. The running back kind of motions. Is that what you're referring to? And then
the running back was off center, but it was under center. Brock Purdy's under center. Okay. And normally, like if you're in a single eye, right, like no fullback
directly behind.
Yeah, usually the running back's like right behind the quarterback, like 6 yards. But they were putting him offset, and they did it at least like 7, 8, 9 times, 10 times. Like I was like, okay, this is new. They were not doing that last year, so that, you know, I didn't see them pop like some big runs coming out of that formation, but it was just, I just wanted to mention it because it was like, kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh, this is new this season. So we'll have to see what they have in store. But I'm gonna pick out 2 players on the defensive side of the ball that I think it's safe. I don't think you guys are stealing them, but that I thought were awesome. And the first one I'm going is Demo Lenore. I thought Demo, we all saw the pass breakup he had, right? Ball popped up. Flanagan fouls, gets the interception. That was great coverage. I thought Demo was sticky all day. Like even early in the game, Garrett Wilson caught like a third down pass on him on like a back shoulder fade, but it's like Demo was right there in coverage. Like that was tight. I thought Demo, I mean, this dude's a future All-Pro. Like he's a stud. I believe he's on the last year of his deal, but we've had enough contract talks. I'm just happy he's a Niner right now. He's a baller. And then Malik Collins, dude, I thought this dude Malik Collins was like wrecking havoc in there, dude. Like this dude's a beast. Why the hell did the Texans trade us this guy?
Yeah. Real talk. Hey, I feel it. Hey, the trenches. Hey, I was massively surprised. Like I just was. And what a beautiful way, man. I want to piggyback off the defense, but what a beautiful way for Shanahan to just know when, that's probably the hardest thing to kind of really connect as a quarterback and the wide receivers early in the season. We've seen it throughout the entire NFL outside of Baker Mayfield and maybe Mahomes. Everybody's numbers were, I was sitting there like, is this the worst week of quarterbacking to start a season? But hey, and we seen Brock be a little off, but he made a lot of beautiful throws. But you seen just some stuff look a little out of sync, especially with that Ayuk dropping a few balls. I'm sure you guys have probably talked about some of this stuff, but
not yet. We didn't get to the negatives yet.
My bad. Yeah, my bad. Hit it up.
Positives. I mean, the way that Nick Sorensen had this defense playing. Now, I don't know if that was more Aaron Rodgers is always, he always struggles against us, or maybe it might have been the Jets didn't have a good game plan. But it also could have been Nick Sorensen had a great game plan coming in. But Fred Warner is obviously a huge positive from this game. Like Fred Warner, the punch out, like Fred Warner is just flying out there every single play, like throughout the entire game. Like I still remember that 2020 season. I know I'm going back, but that 2020 season when Nick Bosa got hurt, everybody got hurt, and Fred Warner was like the heart and soul of this defense. He was flying around making tackles, and he still does that, right? But Fred Warner, that punch out was beautiful. The way he was flying around making tackles, it seemed like at least on every drive, every like 3 or 4 plays, you would see Fred Warner make a tackle or jump on a dude or try to, go and make a play. So Fred Warner, major props to him. And then on the special team side of it, Jake Moody, we talked about it before the show, I talked about it a little bit on the beginning of the show, but Jake Moody got to get his props, even though I don't know how confident I would be in him in a playoff game on the line still. Like I haven't seen that yet. Game on the line, like Robbie Gould, down 3, you need the field goal or you're tied to try to win it. I haven't seen that from Jake Moody. Even that one field goal that he had hit, it hit the post and then it bounced in. And I was like, all right, Jake, you got lucky. But still, Jake Moody's still a little bit questionable. Still not a full 100% believer but in Jake. But going 6 for 6. Wouldn't have been able to win this game without him. So major props to Jake Moody and what he was able to do. And then lastly, I got to give props to Dominic Pooney. I thought Dominic Pooney held up, especially on some of the runs that Jordan Mason had. Like Dominic Pooney was blocking incredibly well on that one. Like he Moses, I don't know, like in the Bible they have Moses, like how the wave, the wave split open. Like he had Jordan Mason having those running lanes for Jordan Mason on some of them. Like, yeah, it whip out the red carpet, give Jordan Mason the opportunity to just, walk through it, for a touchdown or for a huge gain. So Dominic Pooney, major props to him. And now with Trent, even with Trent, this offensive line, I'm confident in Trent moving forward. I mean, I'm even confident in Dominic Pooney moving forward. Like, this is a guy that I think is a starter for this team as long as he's able to stay healthy. Even if Burford comes back, I'm pretty confident in Dominic Pooney and his ability to start on this 49ers offensive line. So yeah, major props to him. And then y'all saw Trent Williams, he went to the locker room and everybody's like, bro, did he get hurt? Is that why Kyle Shanahan didn't go for it on 4th and 1? And Troy Aikman and those guys said he needed an IV because he was, he missed camp and everything. And he was kind of dehydrated. He played every snap, so he needed the IV. But, yeah, Trent Williams doing his thing. And the offensive line in general, major props to them because Colton McKivitz started off a little slow. But the way that they held up throughout that entire game, Nah, that was pretty good. And the Jets aren't no garbage defensive line or even a garbage defense. Like, they got Jermaine Johnson. They got some guys up on that defensive line. So major props to the offensive line, Jake Moody, and then Pooney. Like, I'm a believer. I'm a major believer, and I'm a fan of Pooney. I think he's gonna be the Niners starting right guard for years to come.
Oh, mark the tape. Mark the tape. Okay, Amin. Well said. I got to give props to Kyle Shanahan. This 49ers offense ran 60 plays through the first 3 quarters. The Niners were just running up and down the Jets, up the middle. Obviously, kudos to the offensive line, like you guys had mentioned. I have to give props to a guy I was down on in this offseason. I was saying, man, after this season, we just need to trade him, get rid of this cat. He can't separate. He can't do this. He can't do that. And he showed me he can still play at a high level. And in this league, you need to continue to stack talent. And it's number one, Deebo Samuel. I thought he set the tone offensively. I thought BP was a little shaky in the beginning. The pressure was definitely getting to him. Brunskill got ran over by Quinnen Williams on one of the first 2 drives. They lined up Quinnen Williams as an edge rusher, and he normally plays inside. So that was pretty funny. But kudos to him. Deebo didn't have any big runs. I think his longest carry was only 6 yards, but he also contributed in a passing game. He took out Sauce Gardner. And of course, we know Deebo always runs with force. He brings that passion, and that's something that we needed with CMC being out. And I thought it was great for Shanahan to kind of revert back to that wide back role for Deebo. And for one game, he excelled at it. Now, can he do this the whole season? I don't think so. But kudos to Deebo. He showed up when we definitely needed him. And yeah. Debo.
And
Debo
real quick, you guys saw that reverse, right? It was like a handoff to Mason, who pitched it back to Debo, and the reverse, right? Dude, that reverse was this close to being popped for a touchdown, and it was just. I think Banks was still in the game. I think Banks went out with an injury, if I'm not mistaken. But Banks was still in the game, and while Debo's dancing back there, like in the backfield, trying to find a crease, Banks was like watching him. He like turned around and he's like watching Debo go around. If Banks had just kept his eyes in front of him and blocked the guy who ended up making that tackle on Debo, Debo would have been gone. Debo was this close to dancing it to like a 50-yard crazy touchdown. But nonetheless, while the rushing yards, the efficiency didn't pop off for Debo, it's the threat. I think the threat of him also helps open up other things. When Debo's back there, I think linebackers, safeties are paying a little extra attention.
Yeah.
And then the last positive I'll say, because none of us mentioned, but Brock Purdy, I thought he was awesome today. Like, BA dropped one of his touchdowns, maybe kind of throwing off the stat line, but like, how many touch throws did you guys see from Purdy tonight that were just like layered, in front of the safety, but over the DB? Like, his touch is so insane. Like,
I was too young
out there running routes, and Amin would even catch those balls because it's just such a soft, feathery touch that Amin's kind of got some stone hands. But I think if Purdy's throwing it, I think even Amin would hold on to that ball.
Yeah, man. I never watched Joe Montana like my earliest memories. I can remember him in a Pro Bowl game, but I didn't really grow up on Joe Montana. But when I hear the way people talk about Joe Montana, people that were close to me, it's just so smooth. And some of those passes, like I could hear them talking about Joe Montana. Yeah, man. And so I noticed it because I was like, dude, he's got to have maybe the most beautiful floater. Like, maybe a floater is underrated. He might not, but some guys can't do that. Some guys can't, and we see. And what I like, I've talked over the years. Like I used to talk about Trey Lance. I want to see him be able to throw, with touch, and then be able to fire it in there. And do you know when to kind of when the timings of those are right, like, the anticipations and when to do it and when not to. And Brock's got it locked in on when to. And how to and all that stuff. So hey, I noticed it. My bad to cut you off, but I want to give one more shout out to the defensive line, like Floyd and Bosa. Like I kept trying to remember, did they ever come off the field? Because I'm worried a little bit. Like, man, I want to see Bill. I want to see what Bill's got. I rarely seen him out there. I was like, oh, behind Bill, who do we got? You know, I'm kind of with the depth and all that. And dude, they salved it out for the first game. That shows me when I see the trenches doing that in week 1. They look like they want to come and take it, and I'm juiced just about the trenches overall because that's ultimately 38 rushes. I think it was 38 rushes to 29 passes. Let's go. Hey, old school football. I'm all for it. Hey, who knows? Maybe it's gonna help keep Brock's numbers down in a contract year too. That could probably help the 49ers. so let's get it.
Hey, but y'all saw that trick play that they tried to pull out with Purdy. Because so the last time I saw that play was with your boy Baller with Johnny Manziel in Cleveland, where they had that little trick pass where they had Johnny Manziel go out and catch a pass down the sideline. And they had Brock Purdy trying to do that. And then that play got blown up and Jennings couldn't do nothing. Was it Jennings? I don't know if it was Jennings. I think it was Jennings. But it was somewhere that play got blown up. But it was cool to see Kyle Shanahan pull out a third trick play, even though it didn't work on like a 3rd and 5. It was cool to see Kyle Shanahan experiment with that a little bit on that trick play.
Hey, kudos to
a quick question. Hey, did any of you guys ever get through the game? Did any of you guys ever get frustrated like on any of the 3rd and 2s when it was in shotgun? Were any of you guys kind of like, man, the running game's kind of going here. It just feels like if it's not 3rd and 1, it feels like they're gonna go shotgun.
Hey, Kelp, I was frustrated on that 4th and 1 though. Like we could talk about that on the negatives, but that 4th and 1 though, I was like, Kyle Shanahan, put your big boy pants on and let's go and get that first. Like, what we doing? What we doing, Kyle? Like what we doing? Like, I was. Me and Jay were going back and forth. Like I was down by a little bit. I think at that point.
You just wanted Mason to get the rock. That's all you want.
Kyle, you give him the rock. He goes and gets that touchdown and play after that. Fantasy game for the week secured. Like it's in the bag. You give me that JP touchdown. Like, but then Kyle was like, "Oh, we ain't gonna do it 4th and 1. Like I ain't gonna do it." But I'm like, "Come on, Kyle." Like,
yeah, I mean the dream. To answer your question, Kelsey won the fantasy matchup by like 1 point. I had Garrett Wilson and Amin put in Jordan Mason. So yeah, it was super close. Way too close. But real quick on the positive, Juwan Jennings, I thought he was excellent. He was targeted 5 times, had 5 catches. I mean, what can you say? I mean, he's a hell of a player.
Of them were first downs.
3rd and Juwan. Even on 2nd and 19 or whatever it was 2nd and something. I was like 3rd and Juwan still. It doesn't matter what down it is. It's 3rd and Juwan every time.
And then also the 49ers defensive line slowing down the run. I think Breece Hall only had, I think it was 16 carries, 54 yards. So basically the Jets offense is one-dimensional. They're only passing the ball. So, I mean, I'll take that for the rest of the year. If we only allow 54 yards to every running back the rest of the year, I'll take it. So,
and Troy Aikman said this before the game, Jay. Troy Aikman said this before the game is that, like, he said that Purdy's a 7th-round quarterback. That's why they might not give him the respect that he deserves. And y'all were talking about Purdy's floater pass. But like, this is the thing about Purdy is that he's accurate. He makes good decisions. He delivers the ball well. Like, I'm not like – and, like, I have Anthony Richardson in one of my fantasy leagues, and I was seeing Anthony Richardson play yesterday. And, like, Anthony Richardson, yeah, he could throw, like, a 60-yard bomb on, like, on his back foot for a touchdown. But there was plays where, like, Anthony Richardson, even Trey Lance at times, when you watch him play, like, they'll have dudes wide open and, like, 5-yard passes on slants, and they're missing them. Like, and you're like, you could throw the ball 50 yards. Like, you can hit the slam dunk play, but you can't make the wide open layup. And it's like Brock Purdy can hit that slam dunk play once in a while. Is it the most flashy? No. Is it like a one-handed dunk behind the legs in between? Like, no, it's not that. But he can hit that dunk once in a while with 2 hands. But the thing that he does so well is that he'll hit those wide open layups. He'll hit those wide open 3-pointers. He'll hit those wide open jump shots. And like I said it last year, but we got to give Brock more credit. I don't know what more he has to do. It's still early on in the season, but to not have Christian McCaffrey, to not have Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk missed the entire training camp. Like, he wasn't the BA that's like diamond. Like, BA was all right in this game. He had that drop pass, but like, I don't know what more Brock Purdy has to do. Like, we hype up these other quarterbacks that throw the 60-yard bombs, that throw the 50-yard bombs, but that miss layups. But we out here like, oh, Brock hit a layup, but he has Christian McCaffrey, so like it's not that great. Or he threw it to Deebo Samuel, it's not that impressive. And it's like, I don't get it, y'all. I don't know what more he has to do. He ain't PG. Like,
yeah. If someone's not sold on Brock, I don't think unless they win a Super Bowl, maybe that's maybe that's the final nail in the coffin or whatever. But if you're not sold on Brock by what you've seen over the past 2 years, what else do you want from a quarterback that he possesses? I don't get what else you want to see.
He's just never going to be some people's flavor. That's just all it. He could win a few, and they're still going to be, you know.
Nah, it's because of all the talented players on the offensive side of the ball. But when they mention the other quarterbacks, everyone else has talent. It's the NFL.
Dak doesn't have talent. Dak doesn't have talent. Hurts doesn't have talent.
Right.
Like, and those guys, if you want to make the argument, Dak and Hurts might have more talent than the Niners do on offense. Like Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Pro Bowl offensive line. Like, what argument are we making here? Like Hurts, I like Hurts on that Packers game. Like some of the decisions that he made on the interceptions, you're like, what was that? Like if Purdy did that, it's like, Purdy, he's garbage. But then when Hurts does that, it's like, don't worry, guys, Hurts will be an MVP this year. Have faith. Yeah. But I'm like, nah, like. If you're gonna knock both quarterbacks, knock both quarterbacks, but then don't knock one and then don't knock the other. Like,
right. No, I completely agree. We got to get to the negatives. Who wants to sound off on this? Something you saw in the game that's got to be improved or you weren't feeling.
Yeah, you know what? I'll kick it off, and I'm gonna start off even before the game even started. I'm watching the pregame. Right. And I'm seeing the ESPN guys are making their picks. Right. And the picks come across. And Ryan Clark originally had picked the Niners. And he said, no, I'm flipping right now. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have a big game. So one of the negatives, Ryan Clark, like, really, dog? Do you not watch any football? Do you know what the Niners do to Aaron Rodgers? Like, and that's even when he was in his prime. Marcus Spears picked against the Niners. Like, come on, guys. Like, you know, is it just clickbait? You're talking on TV, so I couldn't even click on it. But it's like, come on, dog. But okay. As far as the game goes, I mean, not a ton of negatives. You know, McKivitz, Quentin Williams is a really good player. So Quentin Williams made McKivitz look silly once. I saw Brendel get like knocked back onto his butt one time, but he, you know, and then after I thought, okay, well, he has missed a chunk of training camp. So it's like some of these guys, like the offense started off, there was some rust there, right? Like started out with a couple 3-and-outs, and I'm thinking, oh man, is this going to be one of those games? And even though, you know, the Niners, they couldn't quite punch it into the end zone as many times as I think all of us would have liked, they were able to move the ball consistently. You know, hopefully after this first game, they'll execute better in the red zone or just kind of moving down. But yeah, so red zone execution, I guess that would be a negative. You know, I mean, offensive line, they're not going to play perfect every snap. So really, I thought the O-line held up pretty well with what you guys had mentioned. The Jets do have a pretty good front. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys got for negatives.
You want to hit it, Kels?
Yeah, I was gonna say McKivitz too with the penalties, but you know, it's a little rough. You know, just the third down conversions. I mean, that's the one thing that, you know, that was my main negative. So that's the one thing that jumped out at the screen because I got the 3rd and 3 PTSD from the Super Bowl. So I'm going to be looking for those 3rd and 3s and 3rd and 2s all year long and see how it's attacked. That's going to be my little special job that I keep track of all year long. What do we do from 3rd and 4 to, you know, 3rd and 1? I want to see those conversions. I want to see if we're able to, because we're going to get in those situations again. You know, maybe I'm a little crazy about it, but besides that, I'm trying to think. I kind of like the majority of everything I've seen besides, you know, a couple flags here. I mean, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, to be honest, I mean,
Speak on the Celts. Don't hold your
he's
tongue.
always had. Hey, I hate to say it now after he does it, but he's always had. He hasn't been the most sure-handed. Debo and Ayuk, neither one of them have been like, bro, they got straight hands. Not it's just not on a Chris Carter, that kind of level. It just isn't, and we've seen it. McShivitz. I hope that's what you no, but so it is what it is. We call it rust. I mean, if it hits you in the damn hands, I've dove on concrete and made catches before at 8 years old, freaking playing 3 flies up. You got to catch that. Hit you in the hands. It's tough. It's at an angle. It was still a beautiful floater. You got to do it. And then one other one he did catch, he bobbled, kind of, hit his whatever, but he caught it. And another one, I think he could have also dropped. But I mean, hey, you gotta be ready. Like, I mean, regardless of rust with the hands, I mean, you should always be ready.
Hey, I'm glad you called him out, Celts. I'm glad
you gotta. Hey, you don't gotta get ready. If you stay ready, you don't gotta get.
How many millions did BA get? Like, you gotta catch those balls. He dropped a couple of that there.
Hey, you give us a few shots at it, and I think we might come down with one of those if we're out there just screwing around. But now
we can't blame BA. Just like Bosa said last year, it's the defensive coordinator's fault that he couldn't get to the quarterback, and I missed training camp, and I was trying new things out in the game. That's why I wasn't so productive. Like, that's the same thing that Bosa said. So we can't blame BA. He was a little rusty, man. It ain't his fault he missed training camp.
But hey, it is a little interesting that the guys that they drafted seem like that's one of their best qualities. I'm not so sure with Cowing, but that's what Pearsall has been known for. His highlights, spectacular catches. We've seen Ayuk do spectacular stuff, but he came down with the lion catch, but I can't remember just too many other just sure-handed. It's not like he's dropping it all the time, but hey, it's something to, hopefully he just continues to work and we see less.
If this is his worst game, I think he was targeted 5 times. He had 2 catches. I mean, it's one game.
For sure.
But yeah, he definitely, when he drops some balls, it's going to be highlighted much more now that he decided to hold out, got his money, happy for him. But
as long as it never happens in a crucial moment, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it would ever be, it should never be too big of a deal.
No, I mean, in terms of my negatives, it's not really negatives, but it's things that I felt like could have been done a little bit better. First off like an offense and defense aside, when Nick Bosa was getting Rudy Gobert by Draymond Green, what was that? What was that? He was freaking getting Rudy Gobert by Draymond, and there was no holding call. I don't know what that
never
was.
See it.
But the refs, for some reason, it's not even the Chiefs this time, but it's always every time Bosa gets held, it don't matter if it was 2019, last year's Super Bowl, today. It's they never call it. It's blatantly obvious at this point. So that's I don't know what we could do to fix it, but it's frustrating. He got Rudy Gobert, straight, I'm I don't know what that was. No holding call. That's garbage. That's complete nonsense. In terms of Brock Purdy, I think Brock Purdy played a good game, but there was 2 instances where I was Brock, you could just make the smarter play. One was that 3rd and goal, Ayuk drops it. The next play, he's scrambling around trying to make something happen. He could have ran in for the touchdown. If you go back and watch that play, he could have ran in, took it into the house for a touchdown. Nobody was in that vicinity. He could have taken it in for the touchdown, but instead he throws in the back of the end zone. Ayuk wasn't there. And that ends up, leading to a field goal, which that was one part where I was Ayuk, just run for it, go in and get the touchdown. I mean, Brock Purdy, go run for it, go get the touchdown, go make something with your feet happen, with your legs. But the one play that bothered me a little bit is not something that's a huge negative, and I don't think Purdy will do this for the rest of the season, but there was that play to Eric Saubert where he tried to fit it in, and Jordan Mason, fantasy reasons aside, Jordan Mason was down the sideline he was near out of bounds, and he was wide open at the 1st-yard marker, and CJ Mosley was a little bit behind him, enough space to make the catch, pick up the first, and Brock Purdy throws in, tries to fit it into Eric Saubert, who's getting double-teamed, and I'm Brock, like you have a play that gets the first down, or you have a play that if Eric Saubert makes a phenomenal catch and it has to be a phenomenal throw, that's a much bigger risk, or get the first down at Jordan Mason. Get the first down at Jordan Mason. Make the smarter play. Like, make that smarter play. But those are the two things that I felt like Purdy could have done a little better on that one specific play. I don't know if he felt like it was a better decision, or I hope this is not the case, and I'm not saying this is the case, but Brock Purdy says he wants to come out and prove to the league, that he's the man this year. But even in doing that, like, I'd rather Purdy make the smart plays than make the flashiest plays, right? So if that was him trying to make a flashy play, which I'm not going to say that was, if that was his intent, I'm trying to make a flashy play on third down, like, make the smarter plays. The coaches like it better. I mean, it extends the drive when you make the smart play instead of the flashy play. But that was one that I felt like Purdy, you could have done a little bit better on that. Defensively, it's been a problem for years now, but the missed tackles, especially in the first half, I felt like the Niners, Flanagan Fowles missed the tackle. Like, I remember Jair Brown missed a tackle on that one run play. Like, guys, you got to pick up the tackle. Like, it happens every single year, but like tackling is something that I wish like the Niners, we got to fix that a little bit on the tackling. So tackling was another issue that I felt like could have been a little bit better. What else did I have as a negative in this game? Besides that, I think I was pretty chill off the rest of the stuff. I think Kyle Shanahan had himself a good game. But that's also another thing about Kyle is like, if you can coach these games and you could do it with such ease, right? Like beating the Jets by running the ball, having a simple basic formula. What happens in the Super Bowl, Kyle? Like, it's like I'm not trying to even knock myself, but it's like every time I played Jay in Madden, I would have a really good offensive game plan, and then when things would get a little bit hectic, and Jay would have make an adjustment, then I would get completely like screwed up, and I just kept throwing the ball over and over and over and over and over again. And I
you got that lemon booty. That's what they call it.
And I would completely abandon the run game. And Kyle Shanahan, the whole season, he does phenomenal job of balancing the run, balancing all that. And then Super Bowl, he's like, what's the call? He's like, who's the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs?
Spags.
It's like Spagnuolo. He's like, Spagnuolo's making adjustments. CMC, the running game ain't all that. We gonna throw the ball. We gonna run empty sets with Brock Purdy. We gonna screw up pass protections. Like, what's happening, Kyle? But for the most part, Kyle coached himself a really good game so far. I'm not trying to hate on this player. Steve-O mentioned it, but Nick Bosa, like, it's not that Nick Bosa was bad. It's just when I see other guys like Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt do what they do, at least going back to last year, and then I see Nick Bosa, it's like, Bosa, you weren't bad, but you just weren't on the level that you're getting paid. Like, I don't know if that's unreasonable or unfair, but it's just like every time I see, like, even going back to yesterday's games, like, I see Max Crosby running after Justin Herbert every single play. Like, you just see him going out there hustling. Like, when I see that from Max Crosby, when I see TJ Watt almost single-handedly carrying that Steelers defense with forcing fumbles, strip sacks,
that's not Bosa. Honestly, it seems like if Bosa doesn't get a sack, I know he's solid in the run game at times, but I feel like if he doesn't get a sack, you don't even know he's there. I felt like he met at the quarterback with Floyd. You saw that one play. Other than that, did you see 97? He didn't make an impact on the game.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. It's like that's the problem that I have with it, right? It's not that I think Bosa's a bad player. It's just that what he's getting paid compared to the rest of these guys that are getting paid similar numbers, like Bosa, you're mentioning the category as Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Max Crosby. So, like, even if it's not a sack every single game, like, I'm not expecting that. But, like, I mean, I would wish a sack every single game, or at least half, but I understand that's not necessarily realistic, right? Like, having a sack every game for Bosa, but at least get in the backfield. Show me some pressures, right? Show me you get in the backfield.
Be a disruptor.
Be a disruptor. Exactly. Be a disruptor. Because I know Max Crosby's a disruptor every single game. I know TJ Watt's a disruptor every single game. I know Micah Parsons, even though he gets shut down some games, like, he's a disruptor, right? With Bosa, at least going back to last year, like, he hasn't, I don't know if there's one game, so, like, I might be slipping, like, he might have had one or two last year, but he hasn't been a disruptor this year. Like, he hasn't been a disruptor this year. He wasn't a disruptor last year, and he has help with Floyd now. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that Bosa's bad, but I just feel like he hasn't been up to par. He hasn't been up to the par, and he also hasn't been at the same level as the rest of the guys that he's mentioned in the same sentences and conversations with.
Steve-O mentioned 2 half tackles and a quarterback hit. That's not good enough for Bosa. He's got to be a disruptor. He's got to get in the backfield, be stout in the running game. But he wants to be the high. Well, he's the highest paid, so we're gonna have these high expectations of you. So he's got it. To me, he's got to get a sack every game. Something, force fumble, cause an interception, cause some penalties. I was thinking, you said he got Rudy Gobert. I think Bosa is just going to have to start complaining to the refs. He's going to have to be like Draymond Green. I never committed a foul. I never committed a tech. Like, he's going to have to yell at the officials every time he gets hold or something, because they never see it. We see it. It's on Twitter, but they never call it. So something's got to change. He's got to do something different to get the refs to at least look at it, or maybe Kyle has to, talk for him, whatever. But he's got to let the refs know that this guy is about to choke slam me. Like,
hey, Kyle did talk for him last year in the Super Bowl. That didn't do nothing. So, like, Bosa, you got to be vocal yourself and be like, dude, enough is enough. Like, call that. Like, call that shit.
No, absolutely. Got a few people here in the chat. Got to say what's good. I think David McNiner checked in. We got Bay Area Throwbacks, Steve-O, John, David V. Appreciate you guys tuning in to the stream tonight. So that's I think we got enough negatives out the way. Real quick, roundtable, who's your MVP of the game? And then we'll wrap it up that with that for the Niners.
Yeah, sometimes I try to get a little cute, pick someone outside the box. Not today. No, JP Mason, you were the offense. Just how physical he ran, how decisive he is. Like, JP Mason, I'm so happy for him, because we knew this talent was in there, and finally he got to show the rest of the world, and people found out what JP Mason was about today. But hey, fellas, so I gotta wake up early. I'm gonna let you guys wrap it up. But hey, love talking ball.
Absolutely.
And to everyone in the chat, appreciate y'all. Hey, next Monday we'll be back again. So hey, appreciate it. Talk soon, fellas.
See you guys. See you next Monday, man. Who's your MVP, Kelts?
Yeah, it has to go to Mason. Violent, man. He just runs with heart. He runs with violence, and just the heart, man. That's and now he's got all the little things down. I was watching just on that catch. I think, I'm not sure how many catches he had, but I know on the first one he caught. I want to look real quick, but I know I was watching. Hey, did he use his hands? How clean did he catch that? Because on the very first one, the little out, I was like praying, like, oh man, please catch this, dude. I ain't trying to see him go get put back on the bench, and Debo run it all game, because he dropped one flat. That's been an issue with Mason, catching balls, knowing assignments. It looked like Mason was on point with the assignments. He made his catches. He had hands out there, and he just took advantage of his opportunity, man. We've seen him run with violence the whole entire time, and it's good to see a guy get that opportunity. I think when Kyle talked, I don't want to misquote it, but I think they asked him about Mason. I think it could have been at halftime or going in. I think he said something, oh yeah, we run Mason all the time. I was like, I don't know if y'all heard that or not, but I was like, did he really, like, am I tripping? Like, am I really tripping right now? Like, let me check.
In Kyle's mind, we run him all the time. Yeah, Eric mentioned that earlier in the show.
But it's I'm glad I can laugh at it now, like, and laugh at myself. And I'll be throwing shit on Twitter because that's that part of me really feels exactly like that. But that's the fullest. I let loose what I truly feel on some shit, and that's just, sometimes it comes out in certain ways. But Kyle, overall, he did a hell of a game, man. With Mason, giving him that op, because I was scared at first. I thought, are we, like, what is up? We're gonna see, 15 and 15 with Debo, and is that the smartest thing on Debo to start the year? We don't want to get him banged up as well.
We needed him, though. I think we needed that.
And you made great points earlier. Not just the yardage, not just the tone, but it's also wearing the defense down. You're taking another violent runner in Debo. That's also, every time we're getting our offensive line pushing y'all back and not doing all the sweeps and who cares about the cardio? I'm the body on body, and you push that full. You keep pushing like that, and you're gonna break them down. You're gonna break their will. And we did it versus what we thought was a stout team with Sala and Quentin Williams. And I was impressed by Brindle. He might have got pushed back a few times, but he looked a little stronger. You add one piece in Pooney, man. If we had that right tackle solidified. I'm rocking with this offensive line, even with the Brindle, because it's more about the communication and the cohesiveness with Brindle and Brock. So, I mean, hats off to Mason and everybody around it. It's everybody else too, but Mason, congratulations. I'm sure don't celebrate too hard tonight, but well deserved.
Who you got, Amin?
Most valuable player would easily be Jake Moody. Like, I get it. I'm like, you guys pick JP, so I'm gonna go with Moody, because if we're talking about the most valuable player, if Moody wasn't hitting 6 for 6, I don't know if we win tonight, right? Like, and even if we do pull it out with a victory, it's more like a 19-24 game, or a much tighter game than instead of us sitting comfortably throughout most of that game. So Jake Moody going 6 for 6. He's definitely the most valuable player in terms of, without this guy, I don't know if he would have the same outcome. So yeah, in terms of that, in terms of pure most valuable player, just going based off pure definition, I would say Jake Moody. But gotta give props to Fred Warner as well. Like, the other guys, like, we could sit up here and talk about Bosa and how the rest of the guys performed, but Fred Warner, night in and night out, game in and game out, comes out, he brings the energy. Even on Twitter, you see the pregame videos of him hyping up the locker room, hyping up the guys. Just the energy that he brings, the way that he plays, his physicality. First ballot Hall of Famer. By the time he retires, like, if he continues at this pace, like, he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. He's gonna go down as a linebacker legend in the league. But I don't know if y'all noticed this, but an interesting thing, Giant, you let me know if you saw this. In the beginning of the game, I was expecting the whole boom box. I was expecting the whole NBA Youngboy before the game, like they normally do with the boom box and the speaker. They didn't do that this year. So, at least in the first game, I didn't see that. I don't know if y'all saw that or if there was videos on Twitter. That. But, like, I didn't personally see no, boombox and Trent and Debo leading, the guys out with the boombox. I didn't see that. So
I am hella curious to see what 1 year without it looks like. I love it. Hey, I would love. I like it, and I think if I was a little younger, I would absolutely love it. But it's just like kind of because I don't know. I feel like when you do things like that and it kind of don't work. I don't know. Like at 2019, it's like hey, let's just. I don't know. It's just it feels like a few of those things, those certain traditions or whatever you want to call them, like Quest for 6. I hate it. It's like we've been doing Quest for 6 for 15 years. I don't care what you change it to. Mission for 6. I don't care. Just win the Super Bowl. But just when I start hearing those same things, I will tell you when I did hear Harbaugh say, who's got it better than us? Yeah, I mean, that just seemed like hella nostalgic. And I was like, damn, like he's just a man's man. Like if you don't like Harbaugh, you don't like yourself. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean,
don't ask Jed.
Hey, man. hey, these damn Chargers, hey, they got a lot of names. If they who knows what's going to happen.
The Raiders.
Hey, I know. Hey, but when you have a formula, hey, Harbaugh turned it around with our, garbage team back in the day pretty damn quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Harbaugh, like, I didn't see peak Harbaugh, right? But like, I didn't watch every Niners game when Harbaugh was on the Niners, but I watched that Raiders and Chargers game. Like, he pounded the football, and that was the thing with the Niners, right? Like, we have a good run game. Justin Herbert, he throws when he needs to, but like, we rely heavily on that run game, and the same tandem of Harbaugh and Greg Roman as the OC and Harbaugh. And like, shout out to J.K. Dobbins, because he had 2 Achilles or ACL injuries back-to-back years. And then he comes out and he had that huge run, like 60-something yard run, to, put the game away for the Chargers. But shout out to Harbaugh. And you see those guys, like, from going to Brandon Staley every single week as your head coach and every single day at practice to going to Jim Harbaugh. And it was funny because I was watching after Monday, like after every football game, after Sundays on football, like I mean on after Sundays in the morning, I watch ESPN, and like it was funny, but Rex Ryan was like the Chargers went from having a Division III coach to having Jim Harbaugh as their head coach, and I'm like, damn, y'all doing like coaches, man, like they got no sympathy for each other, man. Calling Brandon Staley a D3 coach, like,
Yeah, man.
Cold-blooded. Hey, for my MVP, it would be between I'm just gonna give it to JP Mason. I mean, what a hell of a game he had. Setting the tone for the offense, basically carrying the offense, 28 touches. Moody played a hell of a part too, but I'm gonna give it to JP. This is like his coming out party. And I think we'll see more of JP Mason. I think we should let CMC rest and give him as much time as he needs to rest until he's like 90-95%, and let JP Mason keep cooking. And JP Mason deserves a game ball. Hopefully I'm sure he got that in the locker room tonight. I'm sure there'll be video on Twitter of that. But yeah, JP Mason deserves the game ball tonight.
All right, can I ask you a question, Jay, on a side note? Jay and Kel,
absolutely,
because I've been thinking about this.
Let's do it.
If you were going to start your team, right? Because just looking at Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers, if you were going to start a football team and you had the option between choosing an offensive mind like a Kyle Shanahan as your head coach, or like I'm the smartest guy, like same thing, like I'm the smartest guy in the room, people call me genius, a little bit of an ego, some arrogance to him, or having a guy like a Robert Saleh, a Dan Campbell, who's not necessarily the most X's and O's guy, but like players are willing to run through a brick wall for him. He knows how to get the best out of his guys, not necessarily schematically, but in terms of how he's able to lead a group of men, like a Dan Campbell is with the Lions. If you were going to start a football team, would you rather have a Kyle Shanahan as your head coach, or would you rather have a guy like Dan Campbell, who isn't necessarily the smartest offensive mind, but he knows how to lead a group of individuals and is respected by everyone in the locker room? Not saying that Kyle Shanahan isn't, but like you look at Kyle Shanahan in both those Super Bowl losses, like the X's and O's, like, I mean, he's smart, but I mean, it didn't necessarily work out in the Super Bowl both times. But when you have a guy like Dan Campbell, or even like a Robert Saleh when he was with the 49ers, like look at even D'Amico, for example, a guy who's not necessarily the smartest, but the way that they were able to turn around their team so quickly, the way that they were able to gain the respect of the locker rooms. So like my question is, which coach would you rather have if you were going to start a team?
I would take the offensive guy. Especially if I had a young quarterback, I would want an offensive guy. Typically, if you get a defensive guy and you have a young quarterback and you have a offensive coordinator, if that team is really well, that offensive coordinator leaves and gets a head coaching job. So I would want a Kyle Shanahan be my head coach and find a young, talented defensive coordinator like a Robert Saleh, like a D'Amico Ryans, to lead up the defense. That's what I would do.
Man, it's so hard. It's because I love when you have a combo like a John Lynch and a Kyle Shanahan, it just makes it a whole lot better. But then I wish like John Lynch would have been the leader, the main leader. Like I wish Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's roles were reversed, where it feels like Kyle is the main one in power, where he came first and John Lynch is, the good cop. And, he does, and he's a good dude and he's a Hall of Fame player and a hard hitter. He's got the defense locked down. I think it's a great combo. Like traditionally, I love the Jim Harbaugh guys just because that's my flavor. But then sometimes I'm not even going to pick my flavor because I want what's best for the football team. So it's just a hard thing because, I could see why Kyle's going weapon crazy and not value the offensive line, so much like maybe other teams might, because I feel like he's trying to get ahead of it before it switches. The patterns and the fads and the phases of the game. I feel like Kyle's always doing something outside of the box. And, that's kind of how I think. That's like so I would want a mixture no matter what. I would want to like the defensive guy and the hard-nosed Dan Campbell guy. If he had a good connection to a great Ben Johnson or whoever it is, OC, it's the combos. It's always got to come into whether it's the offensive coordinator and coach or GM and coach. But see, I think that's where the 49ers have kind of fallen off because Kyle's taking on 2-3 roles when it's like, hey, allow yourself to trust the quarterback. Even if you kind of don't want to sometimes, allow some of the other guys to, alleviate the pressure, in some of those crucial moments, already have it planned out, try to practice the crucial moments. I don't know what you could do to really, kind of replicate that game simulation. I would be trying to think of those things. Hey, when the bullets are flying, I do start tripping out a little bit. What can I do to, stay in the moment and just still remember, like Joe Montana said, it's still a game. Look it over there. There's a famous actor. Everybody acknowledge him before we go score this touchdown. Even if you don't, just have that confidence, man, because that's respectable as a man when you see someone. That's like taking the shot. That's taking the full shot. That's not half stepping it. You're ready for the moment and you go for it. And it's not saying you got to go for it on 4th and 10, but you can see it in someone's face when they're just ready for the moment and they take it. Patrick Mahomes has the look. Andy Reid, it took Andy Reid a good. I'm not comparing Andy Reid to Kyle Shanahan, but sometimes it takes a while for people to mature, and you can always mature. It doesn't matter whether you're 45, 75, 15 years old. You can always level up, and I think we're going to get one, man, real soon here. I don't want to say this year. I don't even believe in jinxes, but I don't even want it. But, hey, man, the Super Bowl is in 2026. It's going to be in Levi's. Hopefully we don't fumble that one for sure.
Hey, Kels.
What's good?
I mean, both of y'all made great points, but like the way that I look at it is there's leadership can obviously be developed, but there's certain people that are just naturally born leaders, right? Like, but the way that I look at it personally is that if my team is down by halftime or we're dealing with adversity, like the Lions have a killer, like in Dan Campbell in that locker room. Like, I feel like when you have a Dan Campbell in that locker room who, like, after coming out of halftime, like those guys are still ready to fight because Dan Campbell inspired, motivated, and told those guys not to give up. Like, he's able to move a locker room in a way. Like, if you guys get what I'm saying, like, I feel like it's harder to find a guy like a Dan Campbell or Robert Saleh. And like, you look at what the Lions have right now. The Lions have a great offensive mind in Ben Johnson, right? Like, who's a really good offensive coordinator. So my whole thing is that I'd rather have that leader. I would hope that, my offensive coordinator, I'm not offensive coordinator, but my offensive minded head coach is also a great vocal leader. But like, I saw Hard Knocks with Miami Dolphins, Hard Knock with Mike McDaniels, and it was like, he was cool. Like, he's a great offensive mind, but like when I saw him speak inside, like, the film room, like, I don't know, I just didn't feel it. Like, I get what he was trying to say, and he was trying to motivate the guys, but I wasn't like, I'm ready to run through a brick wall for Mike McDaniel. And I don't know Mike McDaniel, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like when you have a guy like a Dan Campbell, a Robert Saleh, a DeMeco Ryans, you can find that good offensive coordinator. Like the Texans have Bobby Slowick or a Ben Johnson, because both guys play their roles, and I feel like it's important to have both of those guys. And like you said, Kels, I don't know if the Niners necessarily have that from a head coach. Like, I feel like they have that from the players, like a Fred Warner, who might come out after halftime, like in that Detroit game, and say, guys, we got to pick our shit up. Like, we got to be better. But I don't necessarily know if not necessarily players aren't, connecting to Kyle, but like if players necessarily come out of a situation that they're dealt with adversity and Kyle Shanahan might have moved them or like inspired them, if that makes sense.
No, it's definitely it's definitely like a players led team, when it comes to leadership. But I want you to go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say Mike Singletary was once considered a great leader of men. He challenged Vernon Davis. He basically benched him during the game because he didn't hustle. But he was quickly fired from the Niners. You mentioned Robert Saleh, being a leader of men, and players will want to run through a brick wall for him. But did they show much fight in the second half versus the Niners? I'm not saying they quit. I'm just saying at some point it's about the players and their ability to compete on the field. I'm not saying they quit in the second half. I'm just saying, a leader is great. I think Kyle is a leader. He may not be the best vocal leader. He may not like inspire you. Like I'm sure Mike Tomlin, right? He seems like a guy who would inspire his players, but he ain't won a playoff game in almost a decade, right? Like, so I don't know. I think it's tricky. It's very tricky. I would take the young offensive mind, especially if I have a young quarterback who I want to like nurture and develop. That's just me. Because I feel like you can always find a D coordinator. And when you look at the rules of the NFL, it's all geared toward high scoring offenses. Like defenses, you can't touch the quarterback, you can't touch the receiver past 5 yards, you can't hit below the knee. Like I just feel like all these rules are geared toward making the defense less effective. Why not score hella points? That's just how I feel. But did you guys get a chance to watch any games around the league this weekend?
I did.
What was your most exciting game from this opening week?
I don't think I had a favorite, to be honest. It was just, I don't know, kind of maybe the Raider one, maybe the Harbaugh one. I don't know. It was just kind of lackluster, just all the way around. Yeah, it was.
I dig it. What about you, Amin?
Nothing really. I'm sure once I hear y'all talk, it's gonna like spring back memories. But it's just
easily. I mean, easily, hands down. I was about to turn off that game in like the fourth quarter, but Chiefs Ravens, like I was about to turn that game off, and then I was like, wait, the Ravens got the ball back? Like, damn, and then I turned that back on. And props to Likely, man. Like he got injured on the play before on his shoulder, and then he comes back, and then he almost caught like a toe, like hit out of bounds, and he almost came back and he won that for his team. So like major props to Likely for coming back on that next play even after getting hurt. So that was probably the game of the week for me. Grandizer, I am not a Dolphins hater. Like I promise you, I'm not a Dolphins hater. I just don't believe in Tua, but I'm a huge fan of Mike McDaniels. I'm not. I even though I sounded a little bit negative on Mike McDaniels a couple of seconds ago, I'm a huge fan of Mike McDaniels. I wish he was still with the 49ers. But yeah, Mike McDaniels is a great head coach. Your GM is great. I forgot. His name is slipping. Is it Will? Not Will Greer. That's a quarterback. But yeah, I'm not a Dolphins hater. Like I promise you, I'm not a Dolphins hater. But I think Mike McDaniels is great. I just not a huge. I know. I apologize. Like it just always comes to my mind. But yeah, I promise you, I will try to cut down. I will try to cut down it. But like yeah.
I did want to say something to what Jay was talking about Shanahan, and it slipped my mind for a minute, but it came back. But I remember hearing George Kittle talk on 95.7 The Game, and they asked him something like, hey, what's one thing about Shanahan that, we don't know about him behind the scenes that no one would probably know? And George Kittle, he took a minute and certain, if George Kittle likes you, he's going to really, really give you some stuff. And there was a good vibe during the whole show. Yeah, y'all might be able to go check it out. Yeah, there was a few good nuggets in there. But he said one thing about Shanahan, man, like no matter what it is, when you go into that office or that room, he's going to be like 100 with you, like cold-blooded, straight up blunt. Like he's gonna straight up tell you, like yeah, you sucked. Like here, let me show, just. And just the respect behind that, because you get a lot of people in your life that just tells you you're great and it's all going to be good and just nothing but just, positive reinforcement. And sometimes, that could be, you start coddling stuff and, it's not going to be the best, you want to be told the truth. And that's what Kittle was saying, that, hey, he might not always come off to us and seems like he's truthful to the media. And I think he does it on purpose. I don't think he want to build this fabulous relationship with all these people and deal with all this stuff. I think Kyle just wants to stay, who he is and, do his thing the way he does it. He has a system, empower his players. You know what I'm saying? Like a growth track or something. And
you mean he doesn't want to be buddy with Grant?
Oh no, Kyle don't want to be buddies with probably nobody. Hey, if Kyle is imagining, because Kyle imagines that CMC is walking down the aisle thinking about football plays. Like, how the hell does Kyle know what CMC thinks? I know he's around him. They both know that's what Kyle thinks. When Kyle was walking down the aisle, he was thinking about, you feel me? So it's just, hey, man, no one is better than Kyle at what he does. But at the same time, could he add a couple of tools to his tool belt? Absolutely. Like, you know, and it'll probably never come in the form of this great speech. You know, it's just not going to happen that way, or something he does with the media. I don't think it's going to, you know, come with running it down someone's throat in the Super Bowl to win it. That's what it's going to, that's when it's going to be like, all right, this dude, he heard us. He did it. He just went vanilla, nothing sexy, and owned that shit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting for.
No, I dig it, but that's one positive aspect of Coach Kyle. That's for sure. What you just mentioned. One game that stood out to me, I thought, was the Sunday night game, the Rams at the Lions. I mean, you got a division rival in the Rams. It's good to see them up close. Obviously, they have issues on their
and that's exactly what the Lions did, bro. Just like it's old
impose their will,
you know. But when you see big ass men start to break down, you're like, oh, we got them. It's a wrap. They're on their heels.
Absolutely. And then Detroit, obviously really talented. As Amin mentioned earlier, you know, led by Dan Campbell. Obviously, we played them last year in the NFC Championship game, so it's good to see them again. Those are two teams. Like, I know the Rams, Puka's out for what I think the next month, but they're still super talented. Cooper Kupp still is in his prime. They still got a good running game with Williams. So the Rams, they're still going to be tough to beat.
They got some young pieces on the D line.
On the D line. Yeah. I mean, they got talent. They got talent.
Hey, what's up with Detroit secondary though? Because when I was looking at that game, I was like, man, Detroit and the Rams secondary could be had. You know, I mean, but then I didn't know if someone got hurt from Detroit.
I don't think so. I don't think anyone on Detroit side got hurt. I just think the Rams receivers, they were just making plays. And Matt Stafford, I mean, I know he's long in the tooth, but he can still spin it. Matt Stafford, I think he looked impressive. You know, in that game. I know they didn't come out with the victory, but
they were moving. They were marching.
They were moving exactly. They were marching down,
and then Stafford does what he throws those dumb games. You know, it's like he's going to be a little off. He's going to have those 2 picks and they lose. But then the other 3 games, you know, he's going to be on point, and because they were moving it.
And also the dual running backs with, you know, the Lions. They got the dual running backs are pretty good. You know, they got the Thunder, the Lightning. Also, you know, Jameson Williams. I know he missed time last year. I think he was hurt, and I think also due to the gambling or something. But he played really well last game. And Amon-Ra St. Brown was quiet, but you know, Detroit is still very talented. So I think it was just cool to see those 2 teams, because we'll probably see those 2 teams in the playoffs. So. But yeah, and it was an OT game.
We got the edge on defense. They got the edge on O-line. But it's you know, overall, I would get, you know, we got the edge because we beat them. You know, but they're not far off. That's my number one, you know, contender.
Yeah,
you know, probably you know, I don't know how y'all feel, but that
Detroit.
Detroit looked like the toughest team to me.
Philly looked good too. I mean, Philly looked good. I mean, I know Dallas blew out Cleveland, but Dallas always looks good in the regular season, though. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily super. I mean, the Falcons. I was surprised that they lost, but Captain Kirk had one of his games where he throws multiple picks, but Bijan Robinson looked good.
It takes a minute to get. You know, that's why I put out that tweet before the game. Sometimes I'll hold it close to the vest and I'll sit on it and think on it for a while. And that's why I was like, hey, it's going to be 31-17 in the landslide. If y'all think Rodgers is just going to come back and start, it's good. It's you know, he hasn't played football.
He missed a year. He missed a whole year.
Yeah. You could be Tom Brady, you could be only Bo Jackson can come off the couch and just run through walls.
Literally. Hey, to end the show, you know, the Niners visit the Vikings in Minnesota. The Vikings, did they beat the Giants last week? I think.
Yeah, they beat the Giants. Sam Darnold started the game 12 for 12, 100 yards, 1 TD. Like, he was doing his thing.
So we got to go to Minnesota to play the Vikings. I think it should be a 10 a.m. start. Yeah, it is next week, 10 a.m. start next Sunday. So who you got? Give us your score prediction. 49ers at Vikings. Let's start off with Amin the Dream, man. Who you got?
Give me the Niners. I'm going to say it's a 10 o'clock game. Like I want to say, I hope Sam Darnold puts up a fight against his former team. Maybe he might come out and surprise us a little bit. But if the Niners defense play like the way that they played against the Jets, I'm gonna go 27-13. I think the Niners win it pretty comfortably. I don't think, I'm not stressing over this game. But yeah, I got the Niners winning and starting off the season 2-0.
Nice. What about you, Kels?
Who did the Vikings they just fade?
They beat the Giants week 1 in New York.
Yeah, man. What a match. Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, huh? Like we couldn't get the Garoppolo or the Trey Lance matchup. So, hey, here we are. Sam Darnold. Yeah, he might have got rid of the ghost. I don't know. Maybe he went to Daniel Jones or who knows what happened there. But, hey, they played a good game. I think they got an easy pick 6 too, though. But good score prediction to mean. I think we're going to score touchdowns next week. And I think we're going to just put up points. I hope Kyle just puts it up, and is not afraid to let Darnold try to shine a little bit. His little, the next Steve Young, the high praise, the best thrower of the football and all that stuff. But hey, who knows? Maybe he does have a resurgence, and maybe he's consistent. And hey, shoot, maybe he has a home there. He could take advantage of the opportunity. But hey, I'm going to say the same score as today. That I said 31-17 49ers.
Hey, the Niners are favored by 5 points in this game. The Vikings, of course, we mentioned they got Sam Darnold. They got Aaron Jones at running back. He played pretty well last week. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Pretty good offensive line. Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. Defense, Harrison Smith is still back there in the secondary. We'll see what their line can do, but they do run a 3-4 defense as well. So
who's their best defensive lineman? Because I know.
Jerry Tillery is probably.
They signed someone. I feel like if I remember
Harrison
correctly,
Phillips,
was it Bryce Huff?
Miller.
I don't know who it was. No, it's not Bryce.
No, Huff went to the Eagles.
Jonathan Greenard.
Okay.
Yeah, they signed from the Texans. He had like 12.5 sacks last year.
Okay.
Man, could you guys imagine if we were freaking the New York Giants or Browns right now, or just some of these teams that are stuck in with a lot of money into some of these QBs, man, that's got to be rough.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I low-key felt bad for Daniel Jones because after the game, man, like people were like, "Daniel, give me a meal, Daniel."
How couldn't you score? Hey, it's hard. It's hard to even name some of the players on the Vikings. It's like, bro,
they got Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel.
Yeah, he got the pick. Yep, and he was pretty good for the Dolphins.
Yeah, he was pretty good. He's a good edge rusher. Yeah. They also got Stephon Gilmore past his prime. But yeah, I would take the Niners to win. It'll be interesting to see who lines up against Justin Jefferson. Will it be Lenore? Will it be Ward? That'll be an interesting matchup. Obviously, he's going to make some plays, but we got to get pressure on Darnold, make him feel uncomfortable. But I think the Niners will win this game. I think they'll score 30 points again. So I'll take the Niners to win. I would say 31-21. That's what I would say. I think the Vikings they'll put up some points, I think. But anyone had any closing thoughts? We'll be back next Monday night reacting to the 49ers and Vikings game. Just real quick, huge shout out to everyone that's in the chat. Grandizer 12 was in the chat a lot. We appreciate your comments tonight. Everyone that was in the chat, Steve-O, David McNiner, David V. Appreciate everyone that tuned in. Bay Area Throwbacks was in here as well. Appreciate your comments. Sean Tuber, John, Niner Fanatic was in here as well. So we appreciate everyone who tuned in to the stream. Everyone's links are in the description of this video. Feel free to subscribe. I believe Bay Area Baller is going to be streaming next Monday, so we will be on his channel. But yeah, any closing thoughts? Feel free.
We were without CMC, Eric Armstead, Dre Greenlaw, Tyler Hufunga, and we owned the middle of the field. I feel like we owned the trenches, and all those guys play in the middle of the field. It was big props to Collins, Elliott, the big daddies in the middle. you know, we keep on showing, you know, if we continue to be anchors, that's what we're gonna do. You know, Brendel gets bad raps, McKivitz gets bad raps, but the line as a whole, the line looked good. Like as a whole on defense, I know Bosa didn't get the splash, but as a whole, you know, and of course there's going to be some miscues. You know, Jair Brown, for example, when he came up a little loose on one tackle, I was like, I ain't never seen him do that. Oh, maybe he's protecting himself. It's a little later. You know, I just noticed it. It was like I ain't never seen him come at a tackle like that. But after the fact, I was like, I bet he's protecting himself. You know, you already got Hufanga out. Hufanga did it last, I think, a year or two ago, where he hurt himself and then he started laying low for a couple of games and then ramped it back up. You know, for some of those guys, you got to kind of, you know, play it close to the vest. Who knows? Maybe it's just, you know, football and you got to get reacclimated. But a great start. I love the start. Ricky Parcell, you know, he came out and gave jerseys to the cops. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yeah,
and
that was dope.
you know, I might have messed up the name, Slick Rick. I don't know if that's
why I thought you were talking about Bill Parcells and Ricky Pearsall, and I was like, Ricky Parcells. I was like, wait.
Yeah, I morphed him real quick. My head gets spinning on this football stuff, but not a great start to the season. And you know, Jay's always talking about the trenches, and you know we need it in the secondary. Big props. I don't think Yadam got brought up. Yadam
he
did well. I finally got his name right. My bad. No disrespect on all the other times. What did it start out? Yadam? Hey, my bad. Real talk. Yadam.
Yadam. It's Yadam. It's pronounced Yadam.
I believe it's Yadam.
Okay.
Yeah. Or Yadam. Let's see. Oh, damn. I was confident for a minute. Yeah, man, that's my final thoughts. Great way to start the season. Let's keep it going. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Hufanga. That'll just be added. Hey, George Odom, Greg Odom, George Odom, he stepped up.
Yeah, he played well.
Yeah, and it's good to see because it's like, you know, one thing I'm looking for when I start stacking the best teams in the NFL, the one thing I'm looking for is the glaring weakness. I look at the Lions. Hey, a couple of those secondaries can be had. I'll look at the Rams. That defense can be had. I'm looking at Dallas. Oh, Dak's going to Dak. You know, it's not. I mean, football is football. You know, Baker's going to Baker. It's like, you know, but I think right now I like the Bucks and the Lions probably, besides the Niners, are the two most stable, I feel like, complete teams with maybe the least amount of weaknesses. So
You mentioned Dak. Are you guys surprised that the Cowboys have re-upped for the Dak experience for the next 4 years?
After Trey Lance's performance in preseason, I mean, like when we stood up here and expected like he wasn't, because I remember last year people were like, "Watch out for Trey Lance. Trey Lance might steal Dak's job." And then Trey Lance, I still believe in Trey Lance. I'm wishing him nothing but the best, but like. Then Trey Lance comes out and drops a 5 interception game, and you're like, Jerry's like, I think I'm gonna stick to Dak.
Well, Trey Lance won't happen on the Cowboys. Maybe
how many quarterbacks have actually been good? Like for the past 4 or 5, maybe I'll say 4 years after the Burrow draft. I think it's Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, and CJ Stroud that have even
been good.
You know, out of probably 20, 30 quarterbacks, you know, it's not many, you know, and Brock statistically might be the best, you know, he's had a little bit more time than CJ Stroud. I know people put him higher up on rankings with the eye test and whatnot, but, you know, not everybody can do it. You know, who is really, it's, you know, right now the percentages are very low on, you know, who's actually going to, you know, come through and play halfway decent. And, you know, so Brock is freaking, you know, like a meme was saying earlier, he should get way more credit, even in mediocre looking type games. You know, first game of the season, not many quarterbacks, you know, looked good this week. So props to Brock.
What's good, Shifty? Appreciate you tuning in. You gonna close us out of Mean the Dream? What you got, man?
I'm glad the Niners got it done week 1. I'm gonna cut down on the Dolphin slander. You know, like he brought up the good point because I be hating on Tua a little bit, so I gotta cut down on the Dolphin slander a little
Damn,
bit.
I wanted Tyreek in the draft, bro. I was hella mad in the fantasy draft. I was like, oh, that's what's up. I finally.
What number did you pick?
Tyreek. Huh?
What number did you pick? What
3. But
you
then
picked
someone took him a pick before. Someone took him a pick before me.
Varuna took him 1.
Yeah, I
Now
was like,
that-
oh. Go ahead.
I was telling people, man, like I told my cousin before the draft because I was like, I'm like, watch out, man. Christian McCaffrey might get hurt this year. Like, you might want to take Tyreek or someone else first. And he was like, nah, I'm gonna still pull the trigger on CMC. And then I drafted Jordan Mason, and then he hit me up and he's like, what you want for Jordan Mason? I'll give you anything. And I'm like, I told you, like I gave you the warning. I try to be nice and I try to give you the advice, and you just didn't take it. You didn't take your medicine. So like,
but it's only been 1 week.
We did talk last week about CMC. If there's one thing that probably would creep up, would be in CMC injury, and we were trying not to speak on it too heavy. For me personally, I didn't want to speak it into existence, but we all kind of said, watch out for CMC, and then I got him in the draft. I was like, I'm gonna go against my own discernment or whatever. And but then I also did speak very highly of Slick Rick, and look, that man, is, if Kyle Shanahan didn't have to make that choice on putting him on the thing, shoot, he might be playing next week. So
I won't be surprised if CMC doesn't play. I would honestly be surprised if he plays at this point.
No, yeah, especially with Mason, but
right.
Hey, it would if there isn't a running back duo, it's just selfish because the running back duo overall is going to help the team. Like no matter how you break it down, it's gonna. If it doesn't, because now
we are talking about Kyle Shanahan here. If
Kyle
is healthy.
Hey, but Kyle Shanahan's empowering CMC. Hey, CMC needs to know, hey, bro, for the betterment of the team. Hey, whether it's Debo, Warner, all the leaders, hey, have a discussion about it. I'm glad they brought it up in the broadcast. I'm glad they brought it up, and then also not winning the Super Bowl, not like shitting on us, but hey, man, they need to get to that final step. It's time. It's like, hey, there we go. Give them a little, incentive, and we'll see what happens.
I just think CMC, I just think if CMC's right and he's healthy, he's never going to want to come out. But it's up to Kyle to take him out.
But Kyle, you're the head coach. Like you have the decision. Like we gonna bring up Miami, but like Devon A-Chain, Mostert, both of them are studs. Like how you play one completely over the other. Like both of those guys, are great for certain situations. Both of those guys, Mostert freaking had like 20 touchdowns last year. Like he was crazy. And then A-Chain, like he had a great game against the Dolphins. Against the Broncos last year, and then he got hurt, unfortunately. But like, how do you pick and decipher which one you play? Like, you can't pick primarily one over the other completely. But like people are calling
that's what Kyle has done though.
Yeah, but that's the problem though. And people are talking about on like even like Troy Aikman, those guys, baby Marshawn Lynch. Like, imagine having Christian McCaffrey on your team, and then having baby Marshawn Lynch on your team, and not like. Being like baby Marshawn Lynch, like we don't need you at all. Like, like what? Like, nah, you can use him. He's like, and that's the thing. I don't care if Christian McCaffrey doesn't want to come out of the game. Like, Kyle, you're the head coach. You make the decision.
Slide him in the slot. Slide him in the slot every time.
You make the decisions. I'm not gonna sit up here, even if Christian McCaffrey plays this year. I'm gonna be real. I don't think Christian McCaffrey will be at 100% this entire year. Even if he does miss a couple of games. Like, I don't think Christian McCaffrey will be at 100% this entire season. So
has he ever tore an Achilles?
He's never torn an Achilles, but the one thing is, I still remember when Richard Sherman came to this team, and there was like a quick documentary that I put on YouTube about like the whole free agency process, and he said he had micro tears in his Achilles, and then the doctors told him there was a chance that if you play on it, you might tear your entire Achilles completely, and your season's done for. So it's your risk whether you choose not to play or play. And he played, he ended up tearing his Achilles. So like people are saying it's a calf, Achilles. Like if he chooses to play, there's obviously that risk of him tearing it, which none of us want that to happen. But if that does end up happening, right? Like, I mean, we still have Jordan Mason, but I mean, I'd rather not like I'd rather have Christian McCaffrey than not have Christian McCaffrey. But at the same time, like Kyle, know how to use him, limit him as much as not limit him if he's healthy, but be smart about the way that you use Christian McCaffrey.
It's unfortunate because, like you said, he's never going to be healthy. And as soon as he starts playing again, it's just one play away. Like when KD came back for the Warriors, he was good until he made that one movement and then torn Achilles. So obviously that's worst case scenario for the Niners. But yeah, I mean, you just got to limit him. Allow Jordan Mason to be your workhorse back throughout the regular season and just use CMC sparingly. I mean, that's what you got to do because the end goal is the Super Bowl. So
you're already down one running back in Elijah Mitchell. So
yep, eventually they're gonna.
It's reminiscent to Hufanga when he had the Baker cyst or whatever. It was like, oh, it could possibly be something. And he went through the season, and then I think he went 10 games, and then had to get surgery, right? So, or whatever happened.
Wait, who was that? Who's
Hufanga?
that?
Remember Hufanga? He had some kind of a cyst, or he had something that was indicating that there could be an issue.
Yeah,
I believe he played 10 games, and then it wound up, being, requiring surgery. So yeah, right. Hopefully, too bad there wasn't a surgery that you could do before it tears.
Right. There's nothing really you can do because after the season, there was no mention of it. Like he was still practicing, he was still kind of in the mini camp, he still did training camp, but maybe he must have re-aggravated it in training camp, and that's why they shut him down for like a month. And it's still not right. So
yeah, I mean, you heard Mason tonight. I think he said something like, they just asked him, how do you feel? He was like, honestly, man, I went over to CMC, was like, I don't know how you do it, kind of.
And he had 28 carries, yeah. And that's why after only one game. Imagine doing that for a full 17. Because I think McCaffrey has had like back-to-back.
Why Shanahan that's why he's got to be the adult in the room and say, look, hey, I love you too much, man. Hey, we gotta, we all got times where we don't protect ourselves the best way. And whether it's a mom that got to come yoke up on us, or a wife, or a coach, or whoever it is, someone at some point in time got to yoke up on you. And you got to hear it, and then just utilize it, and hopefully we see that. But it is Kyle, like Jay in the Bay says. So prepare yourselves, faithful.
I mean, he's had back-to-back 300 touches. So 300 touches last year, 300 touches the year before. There's no way he's going to get 300 this year.
And then how many receptions is what? Yeah, I mean, he's catching a lot of balls too. So I mean, no pun intended.
He had 67 catches last year, and the year before that he had 85. So crazy. But hey man, how about you end it for us? I mean, the dream, what you got to say for the fans, man? Let them hear it.
Bang bang Niner gang.
Peace. We'll see y'all next Monday night.
Peace.